Hello there. I wanted to tell you today about you are someone, I'm someone else, and today I'm going to tell you about what if you give a rat a Frito or a hamster a hot dog, whatever, right? Let's say we'll do hamster a hot dog. What if you give a hamster a hot dog? Well, what pervert only eats one hot dog? You gotta give the hamster another hot dog, okay? Okay, now the hamster wants to sleep on your couch. Okay, well, now your couch is really messed up. Oh, since he's already sleeping on your couch and he's using some of your finances, you might as well co-sign a loan with the hamster with the hot dog. Oh, okay, okay. Now you co-sign with the loan. Now you're such a pushover. Now you allow his friends to move into your home. The little hamster with the hot dog now has friends. So now, oh, great, now you have friends. Now you're risking eviction because now the hamsters with the hot dogs are all gonna be, you're gonna get evicted and everyone's gonna get evicted, and then you're gonna be the one in the street corner asking the hamster for a hot dog. The end. Now, what is that story supposed to entail, right? With the hamster with the hot dog, right? Why did I tell this story? Why did I tell this story about, if you give a hamster a hot dog and then a bunch of bad events happen afterwards, or the hamster keeps asking you for stuff? Well, the story is basically the same with certain groups of people in the United States. We do this a lot in the United States. We're very, very nice people. We give immigrants billions of dollars a year on education. Not saying we shouldn't. I actually do agree that they should be educated in whatever language they want to learn or speak, or they should try their best to learn English. And it's mostly mandatory for anybody under 18 anyway, regardless of what immigrant status you have in the United States. It's just, the whole thing is we get pushed over. People get pushed over. California is one of the biggest examples of this. Its political society is so different from what the people want. And you can kind of see that in the governor. The governor's trying to pass reform, and the Supreme Court just won't let him do it. And there's so many checks and balances in California, they just want to get away with them all. They just want to get rid of the Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit or Eighth Circuit Court, whatever circuit court they're into. They keep striking down the laws. Now the problem is, the law gets enacted, and it gets struck down like a month or two later. So the law has already been enacted and enforced for a month. And so by that time, you've already set that precedent. Even though the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional, they just make a new law that's semi-similar to the last one. Have that rule for a month until it gets passed down to the Supreme Court again. The whole thing is dumb. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a law that violates people's rights. Okay, let me wait a month and see what happens. It's like the checks and balances are too slow for what preserving rights, but they're also too fast for what California wants. So I can't compromise on that. There's no way you can compromise on this. You either get one thing or the other. You can't really do both. And problem with California is they got the hamsters with the hot dog scenario. The government, too many people ask for power from the government, and now there's a lot of homelessness. You look at rent-controlled units. You look at, zoning laws in California. There's some of the most generous zoning laws, and you got the environmentalists who control California, so they zone out a part of the city, like a Central Park or whatever. Like New York City has a Central Park. Yeah, they have that in like San Francisco and certain cities, and they've zoned their cities to crap. That's what they did, and then all the crappy parts of the city now have rent control, and all the really luxurious apartments don't have rent control, and in fact, it makes the inequality worse in the units, the rented units in the whole city. The disparity between the rich and the poor actually gets worse when you try to help the poor. It's really not going to work, and that's what Californians don't understand. They don't understand that even though rent control is supposed to reduce the rent of the units, the problem is you don't have an incentive to build more of them if you reduce the rents of the units. You either value people's labor or you value the fact that they have a home. Okay, do we value the fact that they're just a person and they need a home to live in, or do we value people's labor? We can't have it both ways, and that's the problem that California does. They value they value the fact that someone should live in a home more than the labor that produced that home, and that's a big issue. That they believe more in positive rights than negative rights, and that is really, really bad. And that is why I said the story hamster with the hot dog, because it was made by a YouTuber, by the way. I didn't make the term hamster with the hot dog. It was Etsy Rap with Cheeto originally, but at the end of the video he said hamster with hot dogs. I decided to use hamster with hot dog. But that's the example of what happens if you're a pushover as an individual. But the government did that. The government became the pushover, or got pushed over by its population, and we got everything we asked for, and still we're unsatisfied as a wealthy Californian state. Now, I don't live in California, but I said I used to, so I guess I could be considered Californian, although I was only Californian for 3 years. But that being said, I love California. I love the people there. But the people are expecting too much from government. Government cannot regulate prices. We know this from all of history. Anytime a government tries to regulate prices, even with trade unionism like Italian fascism or even Soviet unionization, it doesn't seem to work. And generally, it just causes a more centralized hierarchy with trade unionism. So that's another thing with trade unions. There's this false economy that there's going to be term limits. Most of the time, in most countries that have trade unionism, like fascism or Soviet systems, generally speaking, there's always normally a centralized person that rarely steps down voluntarily. Normally if they step down, it's some really, really big political pressure. And that's something that worries me about trade unionism. Now, am I against trade unions? Not at all. Germany, Norway, and Sweden, they found a good way. Now, Germany has a very, very low participation in trade unions. The Scandinavian countries have decided to sort of force everybody into trade unions by having it attached to your health insurance, which actually isn't terrible necessarily, but I don't know. I don't like the idea that the fact the only people who are allowed to provide health insurance is the trade union. I think that the insurance companies should be more open than that. But again, you could probably get insurance outside the trade unions. It's not that you can't, but it's very, very hard to fit into those societies in Scandinavia, which is why they're having a really hard time assimilating immigrants. We in the United States can assimilate immigrants at a massive rate. Sweden and Norway, it's actually easier to learn Norwegian, so a lot of immigrants are actually learning Norwegian, but they still, for whatever reason, they just can't assimilate as fast as immigrants in the United States. And I don't know what that is. It's mostly linguistic, I would say, linguistic and social wise. Their welfare systems are highly complex. Their tax system is based on honor. No culture, like our society is not even based on honor. Like, I live in a very modernized city, right? We don't really value honor or love or whatever in cities. We're pretty lonely out here in the United States. We value, some possession. We value some self-ownership, but not to the extent that the countryside does. Countryside does do honor, like the Scandinavian countries and stuff like that. Maybe not to the same extent with trade unionism or whatever. But I kind of like the way Germany does it, where they have the trade union and then they look at the whole industry as a whole. They make sure they have the maximum employment, and then the trade union will decide, okay, this is the minimum wage for the restaurant workers or whatever. And hopefully the small businesses don't go under. In Germany, they try their best to accommodate every single business within every single industry. That's why Germany was able to recover very, very quickly, because they didn't let their trade unions destroy their maximum employment effort. And in fact, most Germans still don't want to join trade unions because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job. Because if they're afraid if the employees get too much power over the business, that the business becomes unprofitable. That's what West Germans have noticed anyway. East Germans didn't really know that. They kept taking too much money from the businesses they were making, workers were making, and then there was nothing left. It didn't work out very well for East Germany. In fact, people wanted to leave. It was socialist in every single sense. I would imagine East Germany was socialist. They had, secret police. There was a lot of terrible things that happened in East Germany. Don't get me wrong. We had to keep a wall to get them. They had to build a wall to keep their people in. Like, the United States doesn't have to do that. I've never seen an American build a tunnel to go to Mexico or to go to some other country, you know what I mean? Or build a raft to go to Cuba. It doesn't really happen. I've seen it the reverse. I've seen so many Central and South Americans wanting to go across the border into some of the most dangerous terrain possible. Imagine how bad your life has to be that you have to go across the border. It's really, really terrible. And to be honest, I would like more open borders in the United States. I am okay with immigration. I'm a libertarian. Like, immigration has helped society tremendously. This whole myth that immigrants take jobs and then the native population is alienated is not true at all. You look at North Korea, I guarantee you their population is alienated. You know why? Because they don't have any immigration. I don't hear anything good coming from North Korea. I don't hear anything good from North Korea, and you know the reason why that is? They don't have any immigration. South Korea has at least a little bit of immigration. And their society is a little bit more open and is way better for doing that. Would I say South Korea is like totally open-minded? Well, they are open-minded in the fact they're willing to learn English, but they're kind of closed-minded in the fact that they don't want as many immigrants as the Americans. Obviously not any country. We have the most immigrants in the world, I think. We are one of the most open societies, hands down. There's no debate. We are probably one of the best countries in the world. We're even better than Europe. Europe can't even assimilate immigrants properly. And then the immigrants that are coming, right, to Europe, right, the issue is they're making these neighborhoods, and the police are just so afraid of going in them that they just don't enforce any law. It's like you're making a country in another country. Now, again, I don't really know how the rule of law works in Sweden, but our rule of law works relatively okay here. There's rioting sometimes, there's stuff like that. It's relatively more common than it used to be. But, like, again, if you can't, I would like, the average immigrant in Sweden to stop, enforcing Islamic law and start following Swedish law. They're not willing to, they don't have any connection to Sweden. Which, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Like, to me, it's very, very important that they assimilate or at least work in the culture. They don't have to, learn the language or whatever. I'm not okay with them keeping their own languages. The problem I have with these immigrants, at least the Islamic ones in Sweden, it's mostly Islamic ones. Mostly North African and maybe, Syrian or whatever. There's a lot of Syrian refugees in that country too. Is they're making their own neighborhoods, the government's actually providing welfare, but they're buying weapons with the welfare that they're getting. And then they're shooting each other with it. It's not really the safest situation they got going on. Now, am I okay with the ideal of gun ownership? Yeah, absolutely. But do I believe people should be using guns on each other? Absolutely not. Do I believe they should be able to have the right to own guns? Absolutely, I do believe that. But the problem is, if you're willing to shoot other people for your ideals or for what you want or what you believe, because most of societies, I'd say, not about materialism. Most of society is about what people believe, at least culturally. The Marxists are completely wrong on the fact of materialism in classes. It's not about classes. It's about people's ideals. If you look at the Livonian Order or whatever, right? They took over all the Baltic states just so they can spread Christianity. There was no gain for them going there. Absolutely none. They wasted more resources than they gained, but the main thing they wanted to gain was a foothold in the Baltics, and they got it, right? You think about it, that's the way history is, and that's exactly what's happening in Sweden now. You're having a holy war in Sweden that shouldn't even be in Sweden. And sometimes they are shooting police, but it's very, very, they normally just shoot each other and they grope people, and it's just terrible. It's an absolutely terrible society. The fact that these people are going into a peaceful country, deciding to buy weapons with the welfare they're receiving, or just hurting each other with the welfare they're receiving, not caring about the laws, making the quality of the countryside worse. It's just absolutely terrible. And the government's trying to spread them out so they can assimilate faster, but they're more concentrated. Normally immigrants don't come in, they come in pockets. Like one group of immigrants is going to go in one city, and one group of immigrants is going to go into a different city. You look at Illinois, Iowa, right? Iowa has a lot of Basque immigrants. There's not very many Basque people outside of Iowa. I'm sorry. As a United States citizen, I have not seen very many Basque people here in the United States. There are some Basque people in Maryland, but not very many, right, where I live. Right? Iowa has way more Basque people. Now, is that so we spread out Basque people just because we believe that, like, I don't know how Sweden's going to enforce that. Hopefully they don't force people out of their homes and spread out all across the country. I don't think they would ever do that. They're so open-minded, they're not willing to do that. But the problem is they're open-minded, but their culture requires order. And that is a big issue. Even in the United States, it really does require order. You can't be using weapons to, do illegal drug deals. In my opinion, we should legalize drugs so you don't have to use weapons against each other. I think that would get rid of most violent crime, in my opinion. I think the war on drugs was a big mistake. A lot of parents said, my kids are dying from drugs, can you pass the drug laws? And the politicians said yes. And now we are suffering the consequences of it. Now it's because there's no way to get rid of drugs. Now all you've done is you've put it underground and more violent. So that's all you did. Prohibition is the same exact thing. Anytime you try to do prohibition on anything, prohibition with alcohol, in the 1920s. Anytime you do prohibition on anything, you just cause that thing, all that stuff to go underground and more violent. I'm it's very, very sad. We've lost the war on drugs. The drugs have won. Let's just legalize drugs. I'm telling you right now, there's less violence in probably Oregon and Washington because they legalize drugs. Now, is there a lot of people getting high on the street that shouldn't be on the street and, getting knocked out? Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it's their choice, I don't think, we should have trade unionism against the the druggies or whatever, We should try our best your decision, man. As long as you don't hurt anybody else, you're fine. If you ask for welfare, you force people to get welfare so you can buy drugs, that's when I have a problem. It's the level of force to use your habit. It's the problem I have. The enablers, if you're an enabler and you allow your money to get taken by a drug dealer and it's a voluntary exchange, okay, I might still have an issue with it. But, if the drug dealer becomes violent, that's when I would be like, okay, lock the guy up, let him sober up, or just put him in a state with all the other drugs. Like, what I would do is I would have like a state, right? This is like George Carlin quote, right? You'd have little sliding doors, and every 10 miles the sliding doors would be open. So like there would be one state for the drug people, and then one state for like the violent. It's different states he would have for different crimes or whatever. He was like 4 main states. It's kind of interesting. The idea, just like box states are cheaper to put in instead of prisons or whatever, which I thought was funny. Put him in the wild, have like the Hunger Games, but like, obviously if they have kids, that's an issue. In like a criminal giant prison state, which I don't think that would be a very good idea. So I don't know, but yeah, you just televise all the crimes to just get rid of the tax bill. I don't know, that George Carlin video is very funny. How to save money, or how to save money on taxes or whatever by George Carlin. You guys gotta look that up. But yes, I don't watch a lot of George Carlin. Obviously I'm not as inspired as compared to other people about like George Carlin. I rarely talk about George Carlin, which I probably should. He's one of my main comedians that's like really convinced me a lot of things. But it's crazy to me that so many people believe that if you have a trade union that you reduce hierarchy, and that's not true at all. And I forgot where I was going. I don't even know what I was doing. Oh yeah, it was a hamster with hot dog video. Yep, that's right. So like, but the hamster hot dog theory is, if you do the same with trade unions, right, in the United States, that's what happened in Detroit. We gave too much power to trade unions, and all that labor went overseas. And that's why Japan, constantly in secret about elections, says we do not want to unionize our workers because we're afraid we're going to lose our jobs. They're afraid of ending up like Detroit. And I had that same fear as a worker. I do. And I believe the best way to reduce inequality is let the prices work. Don't let them go berserk. Let the prices work. You lift the rent control. You lift the freaking zoning laws, real estate. Half our problem is if the government has got our real estate, most of it anyway, because real estate is a long-term contract thing, like especially with mortgages, that should be very, very strict. But if you're renting, and you're renting less than a year, voluntary exchange with like short-term contracts, that to me should be cheaper than what it is. It should not be $1,600 a month. It should be way less, and I think the reason for that is because the government has hindered the supply of real estate units. Think about it. All these licensing to become a tradesman, and then licensing to build a home on the land, and the licensing to put plumbing and sewage in. It's mostly just government fees. It's not just paying for it. It's just also government fees. It's ridiculous. If we got rid of most of the government stuff, you would have more available capital to build homes. Our issue is government. It's not the profit, it's the government. It's the force with the profit that's the issue. If we get rid of the force, the profit won't be a big issue. That's the problem that socialists have. Oh, I hate profit. No, you hate the force attached to profit. That's what you hate. And a lot of socialists don't seem to understand that profit's a good thing. Because profit means that somebody agreed to that voluntary transaction. Problem is, sometimes with force, it increases the amount of money you need to spend on that certain service. With healthcare, with real estate, with all the stuff that government's involved, it makes things more humanitarian, or even better for the corporations or whatever. It causes that level of force causes the prices to go up. It causes the prices to go berserk. Keynesianism has failed, and I keep telling socialists and other people that Keynesianism has failed. Keynesianism is not good for our economy. We need to find a way, an alternative to Keynesianism that works better. We have never had that in the last 90 years. We've been pretty much Keynesian. John Mark Keynes did a very good job convincing people about his ideals. Now it is our turn to see if we can reverse that and maybe see if we can find a better system to make more real estate units in the cities that need them. Because we have a lot of real estate units, but they're not being sold because nobody wants to live in those cities. So we need to find a way through our cities to have new permits, new builders, we need new incentives, because our incentives now are sucky. We don't have enough real estate units for the amount of people who are homeless in the cities that have high demand. That's a big issue. Anyway, you are someone, I'm someone else, talking about if you give a hamster a hot dog, goodbye.